Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is Marshall Sanders, considering continuing with the series rather of the White Matrix in Reparations section. Again, I'm going to go right into this and piggyback on the uh, comments I made before on reparation demands. Now, to go right into it, I'm going to just spin it right out and then I'm going to give an explanation for it. I hope that you all continue to listen to what I'm saying, an explanation of what I'm saying, to show the justification of this demand for reparations. In this demand for reparations and continuation of what I had in the last video, I'm telling you that blacks' plans for reparations should include segregation. Now, many of you will say, wait, I don't understand. Blacks fought for desegregation in the 60s and they acquired it, supposedly, for desegregation. We desegregated the schools, we did desegregated the busing and such other things. Technically, that's not true. Technically, the segregation that was initially started back in the 60s actually ended in the late 80s. And segregation now, by gerrymandering, by redlining, and such other policies, now have blacks congregated in basically the same situation to where we are, in some ways, segregated from the policies and such other things that could benefit the black people. So if that's true, Marshall, then why do you want segregation? Let me give you some history and a precedence to understand this. Now, when people think of Holocaust, they think of the Jewish people. What those people casually forget is that prior to 1947, Jewish people did not have an official homeland. They were not, if you will, a people with a home segregated country. As you know today, they do have a land that is in Palestine disputed land, admittedly, and also their own state that was negotiated with the Rothschilds, which is another story, but I digress. Now, when they acquired their land, they did not make an appeal for all people to come to that land, did they? Oh, on the contrary. They say that this is a Jewish Israeli homeland and that Jewish and Israelis around the world should come to that homeland. So for those of you who I initially triggered, who said, well, why would you be asking for segregation? Well, you can't call us racist or foolish if the model of Israel is now pretty much the fifth or maybe even higher economy in the entire world. So in less than 100 years, these people have gone from people that were persecuted, that no country, including the United States, wanted in their countries. And these people have started their own country, segregated from other countries. Now, you will say, well, Marshall, that may be a country called Israel, but there are Jews all over the world. Touche. There are. And there are also Jews in America. I mean, hey, anyone should have no problem going out to Florida and some other places in America to see that there are many people of Israeli race that enjoy their time and their place in this country, as well as around the world. But that wasn't in 1945, was it? So you see, they progressed to get to the point where they can enjoy, pardon me, went down the wrong way, where they can enjoy economic freedom and such other freedoms, but only after they segregated. That is why that is a demand for black people here in America. Understand that there are black people all over the world and that whites in the world are only roughly 14% in the entire world. Did you know that? Or did you somehow think that whites are sole majority in the entire world? No, the whitest majority countries are probably in Eastern Europe and subsequently, other than certain other small places, America. So this has been a white haven of power and a corruption and a colonialism in the entire world right here in America. So is there any wonder why Americans would subject other races when the whole point was to make it a white nation here? It's kind of something to think about, isn't it? Now, if even the founding fathers and the documentations and even into Lincoln, who, if you heard my videos before, I quoted how he said he wants to maintain a superiority of the white race over the black race. And that, indeed, was the whole purpose of white colonialism over here. Those are his words, not mine. Although you can understand why I would agree exactly with what he said his intention was, and those like him. So, what would that look like? Blacks need their own land. And as I alluded to, or I should say lands, as I alluded to before, blacks in this country, because we're not talking about blacks around the world. We cannot solve the world's problems while trying to solve our own. You fix your own problems, and then you can go around and fix other people's problems. So understand I'm generalizing in this form for America and not for other countries. Now, there are many empty locations in this country in which blacks could enjoy the freedom and the segregation abilities that they would desire. However, the continent of Africa is so amazingly rich with resources and such opportunities that if blacks had the opportunity to go back to Africa like so many want them to, they would have tremendous wealth in an extremely short time. There are actually many nations in Africa that are begging many blacks to come there and do business and other things as well, even to live. And they would gladly receive them. Now, of course, there is a major problem in some ways that many blacks have zero idea where Africa is, or have no association with the tribes and the nations. So it's not like blacks can kind of go back to this place where we don't even know who our great grandmothers were. Many of us were sold as slaves, and we only have the names, like mine is Sanders, because that's what my slave master was. But maybe my great grandmother's slaves were the Sanders, and the other ones before that was the Adams, or the Smiths, or the Bentleys, or the so many other names. And we could all be the same brothers, sisters, parents, and not know it, because that's when our history in this country sold, just like everything else sold for people of color, for their amusement and the amount of economic, financial, and other increase of the white matrix. So, I'm making this a short video on making that as a demand. There are many different suggestions on how to implement these things. Just as so many whites, or rather Israelis, went into Florida, a lot of them went into New York, a lot of them went into other economic as well as other locations. And they received economic and also financial and such tax considerations that helped them to expand and grow in those communities. Well, the same can be done for blacks in this country. And the same can be done for blacks that is in this country that don't want to be in this country any longer. And that is one thing that I'm making as a demand also, that they be helped and assisted to do so. Now the next video is what I'm going to make is going to be concerning how that's going to work out for everyone. Because I hate to have to repeat myself, but apparently people have a very shortage of ability to hear and understand and process information. They go by their own prejudice in their own words and then relate that to someone else as if someone else has said something that they made up in their own mind. But I am going to put into understanding that this is not simply about black people. This is about people. As a Christian, I care about people. I'm merely doing what any other person should do, but unfortunately do not do. For instance, if we're all sitting down having a dinner, I'm sure all of us would have certain problems that we're not discussing, certain things that are great. But we're sitting down to dinner and we're eating and maybe talking about the football game or such other things. And all of a sudden we hear a skirt outside the window. Now we all have problems. One of us may be going bankrupt. One of us may be having a problem with addiction or porn. One of us may be having a problem cheating on their wife. Maybe so many different problems. But in that moment, in hearing the events going outside our window, everyone's going to get up and they're going to go and try to find out what's going on. Because they understand that what is outside of the window and the enclosement is more important than what's going on at that dinner table, or even what's going on in their personal lives. And so uniformly, they will get up and they will look outside that window. And some may even walk outside the door to get a personal interaction with what's going on outside, even to assist if possible. And so what they would have done naturally is what I'm doing naturally. The most victimized people by so very far in this country are people of color. And seeing the catastrophe of that crash, bang, something bad has gone on outside, I could only do what is natural to me, which is to get up, glance outside the window, then run out the door to see how I can be an assistance. And getting there, not simply going, what can I do, and not doing it, but making every effort to do what I believe I can do. And even if I do not believe I can do it, still making an effort to do it because it's the right thing to do. So, this series is about helping people. And the next video is going to be more of a shocker to many of you, because it's going to be about the white matrix, reparations, just as this video is. Although it's going to be about a demand for white prosperity. Yes, you heard that correctly. The demand will be for white prosperity. It may or may not be what you think it means. But tune in to the next video so that we can discuss that one also. But until that time, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you all. And pray with me, and please, there's an old saying about the only thing it takes for evil to prosper is for good men or women to do nothing. However, the simple fact is, who's good? You see, just because a person is not good doesn't mean that they're bad. So, good implies proactively doing something, deeds, a manifestation of something that proves something, just as bad does. But what about those who are neither good nor bad? Well, they're just full of apathy, full of hatred, but not bad works, full of ignorance and fearful and cowards. Well, they certainly aren't good, but they certainly cannot all be called bad. And I want you to think about that as you view this video. So, my next video about white prosperity. I hope you enjoyed that one as much as you enjoy this one. Or at least give it consideration the way you give this consideration. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening once again. Shalom.